PH Hour is on News Talk Saga 960 AM. Jason Thom here along with you as we continue to navigate through the toughest time collectively we as Canadians have ever been through. So it's nice to escape, to be able to just sit down and talk about the sport we all love. And there are so many positives related to basketball, despite the fact that we are currently in a position through most of the country where competitive games are simply not allowed. It comes as no surprise that most of the great accomplishments are happening south of the border for our young Canadians right now. You just heard from Matt Gray, a graduate assistant who won an NCAA championship and seems to be well on his way to rising up the coaching ladder in the collegiate or professional ranks. Off the top of the show, you heard from A.J. Lawson, a 6'7" guard out of Brampton, Ontario, who scored 1,000 career points in one of the toughest conferences in the NCAA over the last 3 years, and just this past week declared for the NBA draft. He was joined later in the week by another Brampton native, Javon Blair. He also scored 1,000 career points, but he at Georgetown under NBA Hall of Famer Patrick Ewing. Also this week, Mississauga native and former Raptors/Raptor 905 player O'Shea Brissett signed a 3-year deal with the Indiana Pacers, then went out and put up career-high numbers the same night that he signed that new deal. And O'Shea really grinded it out for a couple of years after going undrafted out of Syracuse. But after a great showing in the NBA G League bubble, he was brought in by former Raptors assistant Nate Bjorgren, who is now the head coach in Indiana and knows Brissett very well from their time together with the Raptors organization. You see, the sport of basketball really mirrors life. It's all about opportunity and finding the right fit at the right time. And sometimes that can come in places that you would least expect it. And the only way it comes about is if you have an open mind. That brings me to my next guest, Jermaine Small, a former player from Toronto powerhouse Eastern Commerce, where he was coached by current Sacramento Kings assistant Roy Rana. Small then went on to be on Rana's coaching staff at Ryerson University. He then landed a couple other places, carving out his own coaching path that took him to Alberta, where he was an assistant with the Edmonton Stingers of the CEBL. But midway through the league's first season, the Stingers' head coach stepped down. Small made the most of the opportunity, and in his second season at the helm, took home a whole lot of hardware while also being named the head coach at the University of Lethbridge, where he is looking to turn that U Sports program into a basketball powerhouse in the West, in Lethbridge of all places. But in doing that, he is looking to provide opportunity to players the same way he was given an opportunity by his mentor many years ago in Toronto. This is a coach that knows what the sport can do because he has lived that firsthand. Jermaine Small, general manager, coach of the year of the reigning CEBL champion Edmonton Stingers, head coach of the University of Lethbridge men's basketball program. Not only does that make you a busy guy, coach, but also a perfect guest for what I want to talk about on this show, because when you throw in your history at Toronto high school basketball as well, player, coach, all those things, you've seen this sport from every different level, haven't you?
Yeah, fortunately, I have now that you mention it all, and yeah, I've been very fortunate to see a lot of levels for sure.
Now, having said all that, and I know the CEBL is the only basketball we've played in this country for over a year, but still, from like a macro perspective, the sport really is in a better place right now than it ever has been.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you look at all the guys in the NBA. You look at there's 150 guys playing Division One. There's about 100 girls playing Division One basketball as well. No, it's really grown, and even without basketball, I feel Canada's just definitely on the rise, and we got to thank a lot of people for that. But I think there's a lot more to go, and I think we're just getting started.
And so on the CEBL front, It's something that we've talked about for a long time. We've always talked about a domestic league in Canada and the fact that it's primarily Canadian. How important is that from just a basketball structure standpoint to have that now here in Canada with the CEBL?
Yeah, no, it's essential. In my mind, it's like it's about time that we have this league. In all honesty, because I mean, a lot of guys after they play, if they play prep school in Canada, they never get to play on Canadian soil again unless they play for like the national team or something like that. So I think that's where the CBL has really, stepped in the right time because, not just, we play in 4 provinces as well. And, guys get an opportunity to play in front of loved ones. And like I mentioned, like some of them, the last time they probably played in front of loved ones was maybe in high school. Yeah. So I think, the CBL really creates that opportunity. And I think guys from guys I get feedback from in our roster, they really cherish that and they're really thankful for it.
For those within the basketball community, the CEBL summer series that went on last year was so cool because it was kind of an opportunity to almost see the summer runs that we all know about that are happening kind of in the Toronto area, but now it's happening on this bigger stage with big stakes. How cool has it been for you personally? Like I remember some back and forth last year between you and Junior Cadogan, right? And Kyle Julius is the head coach on the other side, but how much fun is it to kind of bring that out to a bigger audience?
No, it was so much fun. And, when I'm there talking to Junior, a lot of people don't know I coach Junior at Eastern Commerce when he's in his grade 9 years. So, and, I haven't seen him play, like I've seen him play when he was at Marquette, but I haven't had an opportunity to coach against him or even coach him or anything like that. So that, like, just the fact that the CBL gives us that opportunity, that platform, it's just like unbelievable sometimes when I really, really think about how far it's come along. And once again, I think the CBL's timing is like perfect.
And if you take off your Canadian basketball hat, just your basketball coaching hat, outside of the Canadian content in this league, the international players, I mean, from year 1 to now what we're seeing heading into year 3, the talent levels just really went through the roof. Like, what does that do for the players? And what does it do just for any basketball player who's looking at Canada as an option to kind of leapfrog his career overseas?
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple players on my team, Xavier Moon and, it's really helped him propel his career. And that's why I've mentioned to a lot of guys, like, CBL gives guys confidence and, for the Canadians, they get to test themselves, and a big part of it is like, a lot of these international guys that do come and play in our league, they have G League, on their resume. And like, once again, I think the competition and, just it creates rivalry and, it just lets everybody test themselves, see where they need to get better, but also kind of propels them to their next move in the fall.
We're just over a week removed from the CEBL U Sports draft. And as a coach from that level in the U Sports level as well, what has the response been from players and athletes for this new opportunity that is now in front of them, this great chance that they have to learn from pros while still being in post-secondary?
Yeah. Oh, they've been extremely grateful, and not just the players, the coaches as well. Because this gives once again, it gives these guys, especially if they're going back to school, an opportunity to just build some of those pro habits and practice. Even if they don't get to play, they get to practice against these guys and pick their brains and to go back to school with that knowledge now and that development that like is just second to none. And yeah, no, overall, I mean, I look at it as it's a great thing. It's a great thing for U Sports, especially because it kind of, that relationship that is with the CBL kind of gives us more exposure and gives us more light that, there's nothing wrong with going to U Sports school to become a pro. So I think it's been great. And, the responses and all that I've been getting, it's all been love. And, they've been very grateful, the players and the coaches.
So you've coached here in Ontario at the post-secondary level. Now you're out in Alberta. And we've seen the trend of Canadians returning home from American junior colleges, NCAA schools. Why do you think that's a trend that seems to actually be increasing year over year?
I mean, I think there's different things. I think it just comes with U Sports. Like there's nothing wrong with playing in U Sports. I think that's like a big, like that's kind of the foundation of it because a lot of these kids, and rightfully so, they go to prep schools and the prep schools are pushing Division I and pushing junior college and, pushing the US period. And then, U Sports kind of like that. We're kind of on the back burner, I feel a little bit. It's like we're always going to be an option, but we're not option A, you know? And I understand that some programs that's what they push, right? So I'm not knocking it at all, but I think kids are just realizing, and not just kids, parents as well. I think they're realizing that, youth sports is a great opportunity for everyone, and it's what you make with the opportunity.
When you're talking to a player that's interested in exploring, when you're talking to a player that's interested in exploring their Canadian option, for lack of a better term, what's your pitch to them?
The biggest thing is development. I always tell them, like, look, there you get 4 years, here you get 5 years. We don't have all the rules that, because it's very structured there, and there's all these rules, how much you could be in the gym with coaches and so forth. We don't have any of that. I always pitch that you're going to develop, especially with my situation, that you're going to be able to develop 365. And now with the CBL in the summer, I think it even makes it more attractive. So, and then, once again, play in front of loved ones. I think playing, it's so rare to play in front of loved ones right now that, especially with the climate that's going on in the world, I think that has to be cherished more.
And we talked about a lot of the positives about U Sports, CEBL, all those things, but I mean, it's still a work in progress, right? Like, this is still being built as we talk right now. But what is needed now from a U Sports basketball level to help push it to be, an option 1A instead of an option B?
Yeah, and this is, it's a two-way street. It's not, I think us in U Sports, us coaches, we got to be more, competitive. It's not hard to see. You look at the last 10 years, someone's been, a certain school, and lots of credit goes to them. They've been winning the whole time. And, I think we just got to be more competitive, and we need obviously more resources. And I think we just got to put more hype and buzz into it. Like, we got to sell our product more. It's not just, we have we've produced lots of pros that are in Europe as well. So I think those kind of things are like, kind of hidden gems that are not at the forefront. And, I know about them because I've been in U Sports for a number of years now, but I think it just needs to be put to the forefront by all of us in U Sports.
We have a lot of young players, parents that watch this podcast and listen in on the radio. If you could pick one thing in talking to a young player that wants to play professional basketball in your conversations, like, what has been the biggest misconception that you kind of want to dispel?
That's a great question. I would say you don't have to go you don't have to go Division I. You don't have to go to the US to become a professional basketball player. I think that's what's being pushed, that you need to be down there and it's better for this and that. But I don't think it's necessarily better. I think for everyone is a different situation. There's a different path. And I think now there's a great path in Canada where you can, if you go to prep school and then you go to a U Sports school, then there's CBL in the summer, and then you can play in the CBL, and then you go to Europe. So I think the biggest misconception has been that you need to play in the US in order to go professional.
As I said, it's still being built, and it's being built like people like yourself, Coach. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do. We're in communication on a regular basis, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in a gym again, rather than on a camera like this. And again, congrats on your Coach of the Year honors, CEBL championship, and look forward to more great things in your future.
Hey, and then I just want to say I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for all the work that you do. It's great that we have all people like us and many others that are all side by side pushing this game forward, and I think we're starting to see the fruits of our labor.
Jermaine Small is another name you will be hearing about a lot over the next few years in many different areas of Canadian basketball. And as he mentioned, there are so many people involved with this sport that impact it in a major way and in multiple ways. The basketball industry in this country is still very young. Much of the work being done by coaches at the local grassroots level is still done on a volunteer basis. Or if you're lucky enough to have a paid position for some portion of the year, you either have to find another job in order to fund your basketball passion project, or you have to wear multiple hats and hold different positions throughout the year in the basketball community in order to piece it together and call it your career. But those opportunities are starting to materialize more and more. For example, one of Coach Small's players with the Edmonton Stingers, Jordan Baker, was named the head coach of the men's basketball team at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology just a few days ago. Already a legend alumni of the University of Alberta, Baker is now starting his coaching career while still playing at a high level. Just this past season, during the CEBL Summer Series, Baker was named the league's Canadian Player of the Year in helping the Stingers take home the title. Speaking of the Canadian Elite Basketball League, they were also in the news this week, deciding to delay the beginning of their season by about 3 weeks from June 5th to June 24th due to the rise in COVID-19 cases in the majority of cities where their franchises are based. The league has a season planned with their 7 teams each playing a 14-game regular season with a championship weekend planned for Edmonton, Alberta. If you remember, the CEBL was the first sporting event to return in Canada since the beginning of the pandemic, when they successfully pulled off a bubble tournament called the Summer Series, which was held in St. Catharines, Ontario. Since then, the Raptors have been displaced. The Raptors 905 have played in a bubble. U Sports canceled their season. The NHL has made a Canadian team-only division. The World Juniors played in a bubble. The CFL has pushed the start of their season back to August, and the Women's Hockey Championships recently canceled their event in Halifax. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but you get the picture. The CEBL proved that they could pull it off safely, but with a huge financial burden. And the hope this year is that at some point in their season, which runs from June to August, that they could get some fans in the stands to further build their brand and foothold in the communities where they have teams. Fraser Valley, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Hamilton, Guelph, St. Catharines, and Ottawa. With the Blackjacks in our nation's capital being the most recent addition last season, they haven't even played a game in their home city yet. The league has also announced plans to expand to Montreal next season, which in my opinion is the only other Canadian city that the NBA would ever think to add another franchise in. And with the explosion of talent from Montreal, which, trust me, is only continuing, check out NorthPoleHoops.com for that. Will Baldwin wrote a great article about the wave of talent. And you add to that the rich history that the sport has there, the strong alumni, media presence, grassroots support. It really is the perfect fit for Canada's basketball league. But no matter what this third season ends up looking like, for example, in a worst-case scenario, say the CEBL must go back to a bubble tournament setup because of travel restrictions or something along those lines, I would hope that our starved Canadian basketball community would support it with everything we have. So often in this country, we wait to gain acceptance from outsiders before we decide it's worthy of our own backing. And it cannot be the same when it comes to the strongest professional domestic league we have ever had. Already through COVID, I'm starting to see the work put in at the high school level to build up our own Canadian platforms and exposure to keep our Canadians here at home take a hit. Now, I get it. If we aren't playing the game here at home, clubs, teams, players, they're going to go where they can play and gain the exposure that they need and the competition they need. But when we do return to normal, whenever that may be, I hope our community bands together stronger than ever for the collective good to push the sport forward here at home through every level so that we can build on the stories you heard on this show today and provide even more opportunities for coaches, players, trainers, referees, organizers, and all the other roles that need to be filled and can lead to great things individually for us Canadians, while also supporting the sport, Canadian basketball. Let's be honest, hockey is where it is today because of the financial support of corporate Canada and because of the structure that has been built by people working together. If there is one thing the last year plus has taught us, it's that all we have is ourselves. Leadership must come from within. And that it takes a village to keep all of that in check. Another week has come to a close. You can learn more about what we do at NorthPoleHoops.com. All of our interviews can be found on the North Pole Hoops YouTube channel. Follow us on social media, North Pole Hoops on IG, NPH Showcase, and NPH Scouting on Twitter. You can find me on both of those platforms at _Jason Thom. Would love to know what you want to hear more of on this show as we proceed to come at you every week here on News Talk Saga 960 AM. This has been the NPH Hour.